stream to okay. All right. So video's okay, right? Should be, we are streaming on YouTube. And then I'm just going to drop the URL for the video into the chat. So for those of you that have hit my YouTube channel, I think I need to update my profile pic. This is like pre-COVID beard Chuck is what that is. Before I went full Santa mode and then came back from the brink. Boy. What if I just have too many tabs open? Yes, suppose. All right. Yeah, you know, maybe I've got some crazy tabs going on right now, and I'm sure it's not helping. All right, so you got the link on that thing. I will drop it into the schedule. So radioactive, what did you use if you ditched Chrome? What's the latest and greatest? Firefox. Microsoft Edge. I don't know it. I haven't used it. I don't even know if, I'm trying to figure out if I've even heard of it. How far behind am I? So am I the only one? Am I the only one that doesn't know anything about Edge? And I don't. What is Chromium? Brave. I don't know Brave. Christian. I don't know. Okay. Well, hey, listen. Now, you know, okay, it's an interesting thing. It's interesting because Chrome, you know, kind of swept in and dominated pretty much everything when Internet Explorer just sucked, and then I don't know, Firefox seemed to suck, and Safari seemed to suck. If you're on a Mac. All right, hey everybody. So first big question: is everybody trying to stay safe? You know, we headed into the start of the semester, and within about 2 weeks, we had about 20% of the class, maybe 20+% of the class hammered with COVID, with Omicron, while we were contemplating how many more Greek letters we have before we get our lives back. And anyway, one thing I wanted to say, I had made the pitch. There was a comment earlier in the thread before class started, I think from Shaun, who just tested negative. Golf clap. Golf clap for Shaun. That's always encouraging. Do I have a hot mic? Yeah, I got a hot mic. Who's that, Jaden? Jaden, you're hot micing on me, man. There you go. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, no. So Shaun had asked the question, how's this Tuesday class thing going? How's this thing working? There was a little bit of an exchange. I hope, by the way, that you'll just periodically hit the general chat. Just even if it's not class time, people are just still dropping comments and dropping. It's like the discussion just kind of keeps going. The occasional meme. I have been known to drop the occasional meme myself. My favorite one was from 3 days ago. Committing the slippery slope fallacy will lead to committing all the others. That's pretty good. Since we were talking about logical fallacies. The other one, let me just throw these up real quick that I posted. I'll put them on. Let me just throw this over for you. This one is, just in the spirit of talking about having an open mind, and being able to, talk about things, discuss ideas, reason about certain things. These are the two. So this one, let me know what you think about this. Okay, actually backing up. I got distracted. Shaun had asked the question, how are we doing this thing? For now, for the next couple weeks, because of the Omicron surge, I just wanted to do everything um, just remote. And I think you guys were all kind of reasonably okay with that. Um, I think that 3450, the other class, was a little more wanting to be in person. But so first question, I guess. Let me just do a little survey, okay? Um, so remote class, that's this class. All right, you want to drop your yes or no on that survey question? It just says for the YouTubers, um, it says remote class CS305G. This one is working well for me. Yes or no? And if it's not working well, if it's like meh, it's okay, but it's not great, then that would be a no. So I am specifically saying putting well as an emphasis, that it's working well. Um, Okay, I mean that's yeah, Sam. You can eat food, as can I. Although I can only do so much. Yeah. Okay. So for the five that it's not six. I think we're. I mean, it's overwhelmingly positive, but for me, for now, I'm still okay taking a couple weeks. So let's just go, for the next two weeks, just to I don't know, get through this Omicron surge. I mean, I think I got a little spooked when 20 to 30% of all of my students in my two classes were like out at the same time, and then I had one student, I think in the other class, so nobody in this class. When we did the last time in person, I was talking to somebody who was there, and they had a mask, and behind the mask, they were just like coughing up a lung behind them. Like, look, it's all like layers of probability reduction. You know what I mean? It's not like any one thing. By the way, speaking of logical fallacies, the idea that like, well, you can still catch COVID with a mask, so why would we wear a mask? It's not 100%, it's a probability reduction, right? So if you're coughing up a lung and you throw a mask over it, you know, it's not like a surgeon goes into the operating room coughing up a lung, but she's got a mask on, so everything's okay. It doesn't work like that. It's a matter of kind of probability. So we're really just kind of playing an odds game, you know. But so John, my wife's an elementary teacher and brings home COVID like twice a week. Nice to have some flex. Yeah. Daniel, I agree with you. I think the in-person, especially for this kind of a class where we're having discussions. But okay, so what I'm going to try to do, I'm playing it by the ears at the present time. Um, so we're going to go for 2 more weeks and assess, okay, and see where we're at. And then even then, maybe um, I don't know. I don't know. I agree with you. I agree with you that in class is a nice thing. I miss seeing your happy, beautiful faces. Um, let me see. Yeah. So, Dave, I'd like to go live if and when the cases go down. Yeah. Sam likes to eat food. We've already established that. Um, MP, the only issue I've run into with remote class is when the professor doesn't care. Actually, hang on. I know who you're talking about. It's when it's when you get to class and this is what shows up. See, that's a problem. You know, like, hey, everybody. That's my, I don't know. That's my professor who doesn't care impersonation. You know, like, hey, anybody want some chicken? You know. Um, but no, so let me keep when the professor doesn't care and just gives assignments with textbook studying, you know. Oh, and then you said, since you care, me, about your lectures and live stream in general, this has been pretty good. I appreciate that. For me, man, I didn't become a professor. Now I spent, I don't know, about 20 of the last 25 years that uh, I've been a professor, a university professor. And I didn't do it, just to, like, I don't know, like, what I mean, just drop the assignment on you guys and go, good luck, sucks to be you, and it's not, I just really dig the social interaction. And you guys are great. You're really a great group. And I am just pandering right now. I'm just sucking up right now. Brandon, some online classes are basically do this pre-made module. I could pay $70. Yeah. And do that on your own. Yeah. You could go to, there's online class stuff, online certifications, and run your own thing. Yeah. And Sam, yes, I did just have this. You know what else I've got within arm's reach? This. Why? I don't know. It's an interesting story, as is the story of this watch. But I gotta have certain things. Oh, let me show you one other thing. As long as we're just talking about show and tell on Chuck's desk. That is so I can give myself high fives, right? That one's within hand's reach. Um, oh, the other thing I've got, as long as we're just talking about nothing, I got this guy right here, which is what is it? A heat transfer pump. When I have my morning tea, I put this on the lid, and then there's a flywheel, and the thing will pump. And then when it slows down, my tea's ready. That's actually a real thing. But here's something I did actually find that I wanted to show you guys. Little show and tell. This is one of those weird dynamics where being remote is actually easier, because if we were in class, it would be harder to see this, at a distance, but I could pass it around. Do you see what this is? Any guesses what this is before I turn it on? Yeah, I mean, yeah, here's a hint. Okay, there's a hint. This is my first calculator. And I want to just show you, I don't know if you can see this, but can you read? Let me see. I can't read it because I blocked my own camera. Check it out. It goes model whatever. See that? Can you read the date in red? Stamped in red? 1974. Freak, man. So at that point, 1974, that's, crap. Okay, this is the part where I feel freaking old, but that's almost 50 years ago. And I was 14, and this was my first calculator. Things that I remember about this. First of all, it's, okay, and come on, man. I put batteries in this thing. It probably just died on me. Oh my gosh. I was going to dazzle you. No, I remember being like total geek love with this thing when I was 14. I mean, you got to understand the time and place for this thing. There was nothing we were using. I was in high school. I started high school when I was 13. Long story. But so I'm trying to reload the batteries here. But I was in high school, and we were doing all of our math stuff. like trig and whatever with slide rules. Yeah, no, get it. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to reveal. But first, I got to get, crap. Okay. My parents paid, I got like, I don't know, good grades one semester or something, and they bought it for me. We didn't have a lot of money, but they bought it for me. And in $1974, they paid $70. I remember. But there's no memory. It's four function. It's it. It's four function. And but this is pissing me off because I had, oh, here we go. Sorry, I'm just committed because it's either this or talk about logical fallacies. And what are the odds that that's going to happen? No, I just have to show you. And then I have another one to show you that I think is going to crack you up. I mean, as long as we're talking about, this is sort of like precursors. How much is that worth today? $400 today in $1974? Wow. I mean, it was a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice for my parents. But it was like the cool thing. There we go. Can you see it? Here, let me kill the light glare. Yeah. There you go. Boom. This is, the one thing it had was, see the little, okay, check this out. I'm pushing this button right here. There's a little, it's like an arrow, like a left-right arrow. And it basically gave you, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It had 12 digits of input. And then when you push this button, you got the first 6 and the last 6. Let me see if you can still see that. Yeah, you can still see that. Okay. So you could do up to 12-digit precision, right, by pushing this. And you can see the little red light with the little arrow. Isn't that funk? No, I just remember, man, it was just absolutely glorious to just have a calculator. And I remember there was a couple of kids, the ones that, I don't know, that had money. I remember having ones, but it had memory. And I remember one of my buddies bought one, and oh, there you go, man. Steve. Wait, what's it selling for? Is that going to go over there? No. eBay. What's it selling for? Oh, 28 Australian dollars. Nice cat. Nice. Yeah, I don't have the handle. Notice if you follow the link that Steve just posted, my little handle thing broke. So it's not in, mint condition. But no, other than that, there is an error correction, like, CE for error correction, and then the four functions, plus, minus, divide, multiply, like an Ed Sheeran album collection. That's it. I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to just toss these batteries because I think there's probably some kind of a short in there that's just like draining the batteries. Anyway, I don't know. What do you think? Oh, and it came in this handy dandy little thing. I was just going through some boxes last week and I came across it and then just like put it on my desk. I'm like, you guys are going to want to see, the kind of, you're like, you knew I was old, but this is the pièce de résistance. But here's the other one, okay? Another calculator. And sadly, I don't have the batteries for that one. Pretty sure. Yeah, I don't have the right batteries for it. But this bad boy comes with its own little. I picked this up in 1988. Okay, so now we're talking. What is that? 88 is 34 years ago, 33, yeah, something like 33 years ago. It's an HP, as you can see, and it was, no, not a Casio, Spencer. It's an HP 16C. And you're like, what does the C stand for? And the answer is computer science. This was actually a dedicated CS calculator. Okay. Now I want you to just look real carefully if I can get this thing. I don't know what this thing is worth. It's in much better condition, but I use this at work at HP. Notice hex, dec for decimal, oct for octal, bin for binary, and being an HP calculator, I think it used the sort of reverse Polish notation. But if you look at it again, like right there, see where it's like one's complement, two's complement, unsigned. Remember 2810? You guys wanted this in 2810, right? Dr. K, can we use a calculator? You got the letters, you got the numbers, right? 1 through 0. And then you've got the letters A, B, C, D, E, F for all the hex crap. It was cool, man. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So this one, I'm 14 when I get my hands on this. And it really was magical. I can't express. This one, I was 28, had my degree in CS, was working, doing a lot of low-level stuff, assembly language stuff at HP. And it was just really handy. I mean, it was just a great tool. And I got a lot of use out of it. Anyway, what else? There's some other little assembly instructions and, that you could do with this thing. Anyway. All right. So let me put my batteries back. All right, that's just show and tell, just to prove I'm old. Not as old as this man right here, but old enough to have been and lived through the dark days. Alrighty, let me back up. Let me back up some of the comments we got, and then let's talk about logical fallacies for once. Let me see. Okay, Star Wars. When did Star Wars come out? 78? 77? Somebody want to scout that real quick? Drop that in the chat. When Star Wars came out? My guess is 78. But I saw it in the theater when it came out. 77? 1077. Thanks, Jaden. Yeah, 1977. I was in high school. I graduated in 77. And I remember, going to see Star Wars in the movie theater. It stayed in the theater. This is when you didn't have megaplexes. There was like a theater with one movie showing. There was a theater in Waterloo, Iowa, and it just had Star Wars playing for like a year. And so one of the things you could do on Friday night with your buddies was just go see Star Wars. So I probably saw it, I don't even know, 5-10 times in the theater on its first run. So yeah, I am a dinosaur hunter. Thank you, man. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm just looking back at the comments. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Let me hit these now. Let me real quick. These I don't know if they're really memes, just things I came across that I wanted to share with you guys. A mark of an open mind is being more committed to your curiosity than to your convictions. I really, really like that. In other words, and it doesn't, I'm not trying to say don't have convictions. I'm just saying that curiosity is a constant polish even on your convictions, right? I've always been of the opinion that things that are true, when you scrutinize them, honestly scrutinize them, which means challenging your convictions, challenging your deeply held beliefs about whatever. it's a process by which you have to entertain an opposing, viewpoint, an opposing perspective, right? And so, back to what we've been talking about with the orders of ignorance, the goal of learning is not to shield old views against new facts. It's to revise old views to incorporate new facts. It's that process of constantly learning. Ideas are possibilities to explore, not certainties to defend. Yeah, no, this is right on. And my theory and my feeling and philosophy has been that things that are true, when they are scrutinized, they appear more true. And things that are false, when they are scrutinized, appear more false. That in other words, the quote that I would put here, and I'm gonna drop it in the chat. Type it as I do it. Truth withstands scrutiny. Dr. K. That is, I didn't hear that from anybody else. Maybe somebody else said it, but I said it. Truth withstands. It's a way of just saying, if you're fearful, if your commitment is to truth, then you're not afraid to explore some space and maybe challenge some of your deeply held beliefs, to get on the other side of it. And that can be really scary. I think it can be very, very scary. And again, I'm not talking about any one thing, if you're like, he's just undermining religion, that's all he's doing. No, I think all bad thought ought to be undermined with thinking and analysis and proper application of logic and reasoning, and that includes, and really what I care more about in this kind of a classroom is more politics, our political viewpoint that leads us to think, that a Twitter mob is okay when it's been mobilized in our defense or in defense of our cause, you know what I'm trying to say. So, okay, let me hit the other one then, which is Aristotle. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Boom, right? Entertain a thought without accepting it. That just means I can noodle on it. I can weigh it. I can heft it. I can, try to understand why a reasonable and intelligent and well-intended person, a good person, might actually feel that, believe that, And I think that when we do that, we open ourselves up in pretty deep ways to greater learning, to greater understanding, and I think to greater, you remember one of the things I said at the beginning of the semester was that the ground rules for class include kindness toward each other, and respect and human dignity, that we show each other dignity and respect. And that includes, avoiding ad hominem attacks, segue, where we undermine somebody, and what they and who they are and their motives and their intentions. I saw somebody posted something on social media. I need to do a social media fast, but and it was basically, it was something, it had to do with something political, and everything's political now. But it was something to the effect that, don't think for a second that this is like accidental, or that they don't mean that they know what they're doing, and they just want to destroy America. This thing is just, it never passes the smell test. You know what I mean? The bullcrap meter just buries on that, because frankly, you don't know. You're mind reading. You don't know what they think. You actually don't know. The reality is most of those people are trying to save America as far as they perceive the values of what it means to be America. And, it's that back and forth that allows us to have our views, but then to be civil when we deal with other people. And that's just critical as we get into some of these other things. Okay, cool. Let me bring up, let me see, where is it? I think it was this one that I liked. Yeah, I'm going to drop the link. I'm going to throw the page over on the big screen. Okay, I promise that next week, Thursday, I'm going to kill some tabs before I start. I did reboot everything, so there's that. I'm going to drop a link here so you can go hit this. But what I'd like to do so if you've got a spare browser tab, let me see how that's lining up on the screen. Whoa, am I streaming the whole web browser thing? What happened? Nah. Hang on. Somehow. Great. Yeah, this guy suddenly just took off. External display. No, all of a sudden I'm getting OBS in the display here. Can you see that? Where it's like it's showing YouTube video live streaming. Is that what it's looking like for you? Yeah, no, that's like, yeah, okay. What, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden it's like my OBS just went south. Okay, hang on a second. What's that guy? Oh, I think I know. I may have. Hang on a second. Hang on. Let me just sort of shrink that. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, that's the stream thing. This is like grand mystery to me. Like, what in the crap just happened? Because that's still my external display. Okay, let me try this one more time. I mean, I don't know what I grabbed. You know what I mean? Something went nutso. Better. Okay, sorry, man. I don't know what happened. It was an OBS thing, grabbing the stream. Uh, I don't know. Okay, so here's what I want to do. What I would like to do. This one's a little more easy to do in a classroom setting. But what I want to do is just start walking through. Now, what I've sometimes done in a classroom setting is sort of like assign these out to everybody, and I might still do that. What I maybe let's do this. It kind of turns into classroom participation, but it doesn't matter if we finish today, but what I'd like to do is just have you, can you pull this up yourself on your own machine, or just pull up the site, thou shalt not commit logical fallacies. Pop that thing up and just take a minute and just sort of surf around and look. What you'll notice. Let me, if you highlight, this one's called black or white. That one's composition division. This one's no true Scotsman. This one is appeal to emotion. This one's got to be ad hominem. No, tu quoque. And yeah, but what I'd like you to do, I don't know how many students we've got, but what I think maybe, well, let's do this. You look it up, and I just like to call on you to, what I'd like you to do is look these up, just randomly distribute yourself. I don't care which ones you grab. And then we can just kind of go through, just kind of go through everybody. It's what I did last time, only we did it in class. And just have you just explain what you think it means, and kind of like ideally give an example of it. And I don't care if you do that sort of out loud verbally, or if you do it, via the chat window. Either way is totally fine by me. So just, by yourself, just take a look. Let's just take a couple minutes. And I can, again, you gotta pull it up on your own browser. Yeah, everybody picks one. Yeah, Jesse, everybody picks one. And just to sort of like look at it and noodle, you'll see they're kind of going by here slowly. And what I'd like you to do is come up with one. I'd like everybody to do it. We won't get through everybody today, but we can continue on Thursday. So, okay, you need to pick one. We've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 24. There'll be a little bit of overlap. That's okay. And there may be some that nobody grabs. And then at that point, what I'd like to do, let's take these kind of like one at a time. And so what I'd like to do, let me see, let's do it this way. So Jesse picked the Texas Sharpshooter, okay, which is this one. Is this it? No, that's that. Which one's Texas Sharpshooter? What's the icon? Which one's the target sign? I thought that was the target sign. Oh, there we go, like the bullseye. Gotcha. Yeah, okay. So let me see. Everybody who picked the Texas Sharpshooter, Jesse went first. Um, so Jesse said, well, actually, so Petey said, picking and choosing which data points get used from a data set to prove your point. The example used in the website was a cowboy shooting random barns, then painting targets around the bullet holes that looked like he got bullseyes every time. Okay, so let's try to come up with one that's sort of like in the wild. Okay, what would be an example of something that you might see in the wild that would be the Texas Sharpshooter? What do we got? So, in fact, I'm going to pick on Jesse and Petey, since you guys threw out Texas Sharpshooter. And anybody else can jump in on this. Give me an example in the wild of Texas sharpshooter. Because I mean, nobody actually, shoots at targets and then paints bullseyes around it. So Jesse said taking certain times and saying that's the average of the set, even though there's a bigger data set. Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's not a bad one. How about this one? Have you ever seen? Maybe I can draw a picture. You ever seen? I think this is a good example, and you're going to get to see my amazing artwork. But you look at, they show you a graph. I'm going to do the thing here. And the graph looks like, that, right? Because you only looked at, you looked at the part that made it look like like you were making your point. But then if you look at the entire data set, it, it sort of goes, that's the data set. And you just looked at that chunk, and you adjusted the scale so that rather than looking like that's actually the bottom, right? But you want it to look like it was dramatic. It was so dramatic. Look at that. And then the reality is you're sort of up here with, a couple little things. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So that, I think, is a good example of the Texas sharpshooter. Um, Let me see other examples on Texas. Andreval said you can prove whether a class is sexist or not easily. You look at the percentage, see that 90% of the class is male, 10% is female, automatically sexist. Yeah, right. Which is almost a. Now that's an interesting thing. Um, yeah. So Andreval is giving an example that you're looking at data, like, for example, the average of a demographic, right? So in your example, using it's politically loaded, right? But I mean, let's just roll with it. Um, if there were 100 applicants, and let's remove it from sexism just because it's potentially loaded, but just there's some attribute, A and B, and I look at the demographics, and only 10% of this group is from Group A, and 90% are from Group B. But maybe there were only, if there were only 10 applicants from Group A, then the data that you're looking at doesn't say what you're trying to make it say, I guess, right? If you're later on going to say, that's a problem, right? Um, that's maybe an example. Okay, any others on text sharpshooter? I'm gonna jump back to the top. Oh yeah, let's go appeal to authority. CR was the next one up. Using your position to get another person to believe what you're saying, or using somebody, right? Using somebody else's position and authority. Like you're like Dr. K says, like we all know that's worthless. Um, oh yeah, a parent telling their child something's true because they're the parent and they said so is absolutely an appeal to authority, sometimes called proof by authority, right? Now, here's the interesting thing about that, okay? And I'm going to let me see. Radioactive said, it means we don't think for ourselves. That I think is possibly true. We assume something is true because of what someone with power says. Um, there ought to be, Godwin's law, right? Which has to do with the length of a discussion on the internet and how long it'll take for Hitler to show up, in the conversation. There should be something similar to Godwin's law for Trump. How long before Trump shows up? Um, and by the way, Radioactive, I'm going to say we saw a lot of this during Trump's presidency. I'm a radical centrist. I would assert that I saw a great deal of it. I'll do my little Trump, my little I can't even do Trump's little hand signs. Um, I saw it on both sides. Sort of appeal to authority on both extremes across the political spectrum. So I don't know if you were, if you were impugning, one side or the other as a radical centrist. I saw it. I saw it across both. Let me just see if there's others that said. Um, and by the way, when you're dropping definitions and stuff in the chat below, keep the name of the fallacy with you, so I have context. Okay. Let me see. Is there any other of the proof by authority? Um, sorry, I gotta get one of these in there. I'm drying out. Um, okay, John said Texas sharpshooter is common among people who recommend what to invest in. See, many people look at this graph of Tesla and say it's crashing. It's time to sell the company. But if you look at the big picture, right? No, right? Are you with me, John? This is the same. Yours is in the wild. I made mine up, but it's really the same idea, right? You take a sort of a certain look, right? Yeah. Um, okay. Let me back up. And he goes, appeal to authority. That one's an interesting one. Okay. So what's the dilemma on appeal to authority? Well, sometimes the authority is right. I mean, isn't that what we're doing when we say, we had a little discussion about climate change, right? Isn't ultimately there's nobody in this classroom, I'm going to guess, that actually possesses in and of themselves the qualifications to offer, a definitive scientific opinion that that would be in some way persuasive to me about, anthropogenic climate change, or any other number of certain kinds of things where there's a scientific question, but a very, very politicized, thing that surrounds it, right? Um, so for those that are, firmly convinced, why is that? If it's not an appeal to authority, but I wouldn't argue that you've done a wrong thing by appealing to that authority. It's just that appeal to authority in and of itself doesn't establish truth. So I'm going to make a bold claim. The famous paper, which I've read, about 97% of climate experts concur, whatever. I don't believe it's a good study. I've done that kind of study before. I don't know about. I'm not a climate change. I'm not a climatologist. I lack the scientific background, but I don't lack a scientific background on what smells like a good study and what doesn't. And my opinion is that study is not a good study. But even if it were done well, it doesn't mean that the truth doesn't lie in the minority. And I think that history shows that some, non-0% of the time, truth does lie with the minority and not with the majority. And yet, for the most part, we're stuck with saying, well, this is the best we've got. This is the best understanding we have so far. Studies show that those who have not been vaccinated and catch COVID have a, pushing 20 times greater chance of being hospitalized, but I'm not an expert in that space either. I happen to believe those studies. So is that a proof by authority? And I'm just saying that's the dilemma, because sometimes an appeal to authority is an appropriate play, and sometimes it's not. And whether it is or isn't, I think is sometimes a judgment call. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not like uncorking the unrecorkable topic by bringing up vaccines and climate change. But the bottom line is, so CR said, I think appeal by authority or appeal to authority can work if you have the data to back it up. Ultimately, it comes down to you have to say, these are the authorities, and I've looked as best I can, and it is my belief based upon what these authorities have said that this is a good course of action or something I believe in, right? Or something like that. And I think the difference is you can say that, I think, all day long, every day. Here's why I believe, I think is fair, okay? Which relates to bandwagon. Here's why I believe, I think you can say it all day long, every day. To say you're an idiot because you don't believe, because authority, I just think that's I think it's a dicier proposition, you know? I mean, again, I would say, okay, I'm going to make one more bold statement. They're classic examples: Copernicus, Galileo, people who, the consensus of the experts was counter. And in some cases, there were people put to death. There were a lot of things while believing what was, ostensibly scientifically true, but not accepted socially, culturally, religiously, or scientifically, right? Um, and there are big, big notable examples of that idea, right? There was scientific consensus that smoking was not harmful, right? Then you got to dig in. Show me the money, right? You got to figure out, well, who was conducting those studies? Where was the funding? But can you not apply that same scrutiny when it comes to every other thing where there's an appeal to authority? Where's the funding coming? What's the motivation? What I'm trying to, and I'm not trying to say, so for those of you that want to start the Twitter mob, Dr. K says vaccines are like tobacco, No, you're being an idiot. If you believe this is what I'm saying, yeah, see me, I'm proof by, trust me, I'm a doctor. No, you know what I'm trying to say? Um, Authority is wrong some part of the time. The problem is, now there's another logical fallacy. If cherry picking the data, well, Galileo, was considered a nut job. Ergo, all nut jobs are true. You see how that doesn't work? You see the logical inconsistency? That there have been nut jobs is evidence. Sorry, that there have been people considered nut jobs who turned out to be true and correct is evidence that being outside the mainstream doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong. But statistically, the number of nut jobs who were right is actually small. Okay, so there's a possibility. It's not the probability. But you got to play this subjective game with yourself. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, let me go back up. Is this making sense? And all I'm trying to do is get you to, I'm not going to have a quiz about, what's no true Scotsman. I'm not going to do that. And have quizzes or whatever kind of. I just want you to have like just the exposure. Just talk, engage, right? And again, some of you, for all I know, are just like zoned out playing Fortnite right now. I don't know, but you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, let me bring it on down here. I'm trying to catch up with the. That's good on appeal to authority, but I think it does really point out some of the difficulty, right? But Texas sharpshooter, I think we've got. Okay, genetic. What's the definition of genetic? Which one was genetic? Don't wait. Come on, baby. Genetic. Judging something good or bad on the basis of where it comes from. Now that's very related to proof by authority, right? You can see that it's similar. It's similar. It's more like, I don't know. Here's an example like, well, my doctor says blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, yeah, where's your doctor? And you're like, well, this is my doctor from California. Oh, California. Like that, you know what I mean? Or, you know, my doctor's from Italy. Oh, socialized medicine. In other words, it has the idea here is your doctor might be right or doctor might be wrong. Certain people from California may be right or wrong, But that simple notion of where you came from, what the group is, you know, um, doesn't by itself determine anything of the sort. And in fact, does that make sense? I mean, there's a thing in Utah, a lot of times, I don't know, you get this really political divide. You know what I mean? Like if you're living in Massachusetts and your doctor is from Oklahoma, you know, and it's as much, there's a political element. Let's go Utah since it's closer to home. And liberal in Massachusetts is going to go, oh, your doctor in Utah probably told you, blah, blah, insert, cultural, religious slur, or similarly, somebody in Utah talking about somebody, my doctor, your doc, oh, California, and you do see that, well, you sound like so and so. I had that happen. Good friend, I was saying, we were talking politics, and I said, I don't remember what I was saying. I don't remember the point, which doesn't really matter. But I just said whatever I said. I'm just like, well, have you thought about blah, blah, blah? And he goes, oh, in this particular case, he accused me of sounding like Chuck Schumer. Apart from I like the name, I think he's an idiot. So, not a fan. Not a fan of Mr. Schumer. And, and again, I'm an equal opportunity, not a fan boy when it comes to politicians. But, he goes, oh, you sound like Chuck Schumer. And I'm like, what did he say? You know what I mean? Like, in other words, I said a thing. Chuck Schumer, who I don't even like, said a thing, and it was the same thing. And I was like, so was it true? Is what he said true or false? I mean, I think Chuck Schumer, like a lot of politicians, is wrong, a good part of the time. But, even a broken clock is right twice a day, that old expression. Even a politician is right from some time. Apparently, I happen to coincide, but it was more just like, well, that sounds like a Democratic talking point. I didn't even know what the talking points were. There was just a particular thing I happened to, think was worth expressing. Hunter just said information. So on genetic, information came from Wikipedia, therefore it's reliable/unreliable. Right. And that's also the nice thing is with genetic, you're either accepting or rejecting of whatever the thing is based upon its origins. Right. Now I will say this, Hunter. Wikipedia is less of the genetic, and I'm not saying it doesn't work. But I am saying that it's better. There is a peer review process on Wikipedia. Studies have shown that studies that I believe have shown that the level of reliable versus unreliable information on Wikipedia is better than any of the major encyclopedias back in the day. Just noodle on that for a second. Okay. And one of the reasons is because it's so easy to fix. If you find something that's not right, I've changed Wikipedia pages just because I'm like, okay, that's not correct. I know it's, or it's just a typo, fix the typo. It's a it's a crowdsourced thing. So Wikipedia, there's actually a reason to believe, if, empirically, there's a statistical reason to believe Wikipedia. There are empirical, there's biased reasons not to. I think this works better when it comes to genetic, when it really has no bearing. You know what I mean? Like your doctor is from California. My brother-in-law, oh yeah, where's he live? Why does that matter? He could be right or he could be wrong. But anyway, okay, let me see. There's Hunter. Andreval, middle ground, means that you claim a compromise or a middle point between two extremes. Oh, the fact that you compromised must be that that's true. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of that's really popular in politics. Suggesting that. Well, here's an example. Here's an example, and I won't pick on one party or the other. I dislike them both as a radical centrist. But um, imagine that, I don't know, pick something really, really stupid. Your business partner um, wants to give $100,000 to a Nigerian prince that just emailed him, right? And you're like, no, that it's a scam, right? So back to Underval's thing, what's the compromise? Send $50,000 to the Nigerian prince, so called, right? Um, yeah, what do you think, right? I mean, there's no a compromised position in that instance. First of all, if you know what the Nigerian scam is, um, there's no truth in the compromise between those two positions. You're either going to throw whatever you give to this Nigerian is going to be lost, or non-Nigerian, right? They call it a Nigerian scam because these things originated in Nigeria. The first wave of this kind of phishing attack originated in Nigeria. That's why they call them Nigerian attacks. Um, right? The truth is, it's a scam. Run, do not walk to the nearest exit. So that's a good one. Let me back up. Where are we at here? Dave said the fallacy. Just because, this is one of my favorites. Just because an argument is fallacious doesn't mean the position is wrong. It just means it's poorly argued. And one of the things that makes me crazy, maybe this makes some of you crazy. It's just this idea that somebody is expressing a conclusion that you agree with, and their reasons are just effed up beyond all belief. The whole rationale is just like, oh, I can't believe I agree with you. I can't believe, like, for example, I can't believe we're going to vote for the same person, but your reasons, I think, are really screwed up, you know, right? I mean, I think those are examples. Ah, man, there's so many examples of just watching people poorly argue. You know what I mean? It also opens up another sort of a side attack when somebody argues a certain perspective or position, and they do it really poorly. They just screw up the logic and screw up everything, or you know, it also opens up another sort of fallacy attack by the other side. That's sort of I don't know what the name would be, but basically you're only doing that because you're insert, negative pejorative, right? You only want, you know, you're only voting against this jobs bill because you're a racist. This is a logical fallacy. First of all, I don't even care what the jobs bill is, who voted or who they are. It's a logical fallacy, right? You're only voting for X because of Y. It's a built-in logical fallacy, starting with the fact that you're mind reading. Okay. Um, yeah, let's go to let me see, Braden Strawman. So you said misrepresenting someone's argument to make, yeah, misrepresenting. I thought at first I read it like misperceiving or something. Yeah, the idea behind straw man, I've also heard it referred to as a straw dummy. Like a scarecrow. The man made of straw. And the idea is you've said something, and I don't agree with it, so I'm going to tear it apart. I'm going to go after you. Now, what I do is I characterize your argument, your position, in the weakest way possible, or at least in a way that is, sufficiently weak, right? Sufficiently weak that I can tear the thing down, right? So rather than getting in an actual fight with you and getting in the ring and, going at it, I'm going to just put a straw man, put your face on the straw man, and then go, and the straw just goes, right? So it wasn't that hard to defeat the straw man, but it wasn't the real thing. So this one is I think almost unconscionable, but extremely common. To make sure that you're not engaging in the straw man fallacy, you need to be able to express to the other person as well as you can their viewpoint in such a way that when you express it to them, they'll buy it. Okay? So that does that make sense? So that when you express it, they'll just go. And then what I try to do when I'm having that kind of a discussion, let me see if I'm understanding what you're trying to say. I think you're saying this, please correct me because I want to get this right. I think you're saying this, and therefore that. And then it gives them an opportunity to go, no, not exactly. Okay, tell me. Now I'm learning also, right? And then I'm like, okay, here's my concern with this. Here's my issue with this. And then you're now having a conversation. But when you're just like, you just are voting against a jobs bill because you're a racist. That's another example. It's of a straw man, of a straw man argument, right? Because nobody wants to be a racist, and nobody, and it's not defensible to be a racist. So you got me. I'm a racist. You got me. You know, how do you defend? There's no argument. You haven't made an argument. You just accuse me. Also, by the way, that's an example of an ad hominem attack, which means it's about the person. You don't even have you haven't talked about the merits of the bill or why an intelligent person might vote for or against it, because there's always reasons, when it comes to bills, why somebody votes for one thing or another. But by simply saying you're only voting against it because you're a racist, or insert pejorative term, right? You're basically saying you're an a-hole and that's why I'm right. Well, you may be, and interestingly, they may be a racist. They may be an a-hole. There may be a bunch of other things, but that's not an actual argument. That's not a logically consistent argument. Let me see. Yeah, Dave said on sharpshooter, only divulging successful experiments and leaving out all the failures. Sure. Yeah, Josh, slippery slope. If A happens, then Z. Well, if A happens, then Z will follow. That naturally. We talked a little bit about slippery slope last time, didn't we? What are we at? Yeah, Sam. So the first thing shouldn't be allowed to happen, and that is, we talked about that. It is tough because there are in fact slippery slopes, but the fact that you're saying it's going to happen doesn't mean it will. So in other words, the slippery slope rebuttal isn't that there aren't slippery slopes, because there are. There are things which lead to other things. And what does that lead to? Beer. We had this conversation. Let me see. We're about out of time. The gambler's fallacy, Brandon. Assume that previous statistical outcomes somehow affect future results. I lost 5 times in a row, so I'm bound to win the next one. The sixth one, in and of itself, is as likely as the first 5, as each of the first 5. It's only when you start and say, I'm going to play 10 in a row, I'm going to flip a coin. If you flip a coin, and every time track it, and it's come out 80% tail, well, you may have an unbalanced coin. But assuming the coin's balanced and the process is fair, the odds of this flip being a head or a tail is not affected. However, if you take it as a group statistically, the odds of actually flipping 10, heads in a row is going to be, what is it? The odds against it are 2 to the 10th. But you're taking the fact that I'm going to do 10. The odds of getting, a certain result from a group of a certain size, you can talk about that, but you have to treat it as a group. It's more just like, however many times something's happened, as long as we're dealing with sort of random behaviors and not perfectly predictable behaviors like the sun's going to come up. Okay, we're out of time. When we come back on Thursday, we'll kick in with kind of where Brandon and Elena, we can kind of go back to where the comments are currently dropped in and sort of make our way back. But this is interesting, I hope, and we'll try to eventually, we'll get through all of these. But I just want you to be thinking about how surrounded you are by, and check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? I mean, you've got to check yourself. And that's important, really, really important, because it's easy to point the finger at somebody else. It's a lot harder to go, yeah, maybe I'm doing that, or maybe I tend to do that. And what would I do instead? How would I clean that up? Right? Okay, out of time. This was good. I think this was really, really good. I hope that was enjoyable. And if you didn't sign the roll, please sign the attendance roll. And I will see you Thursday right here, remote, same bat time, same bat channel. Okay? And we'll revisit in mid-February about going back into the classroom where we can all share our COVID together. Later.